Hello, LMCC creative writers. I was hoping that some of you would join me on Zoom today, but since you weren't able to make it, I will make a little video of what we were going to do together. This week is focusing on poetry. So the first week we looked at words and writing letters. The second week we looked at description and how in order to make something interesting in writing, you need to describe it well and with interesting detail. So both of those weeks help us build up to this week, which is poetry. Our group activity today was going to be to write some haikus together, and haikus are a beautiful form of Japanese poetry that are very simple. They're made up of 3 lines and with a specific number of syllables in each line. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but since it's just me talking to you, I thought it would be wonderful to share some poems that I'll read to you, and we can look at them together and see what's working in them, why they sound beautiful to us. And keep in the back of your mind that as you're doing your own writing, should you want to do creative writing, that the things that make poetry interesting are different than what makes, say, a really well-written essay or a story interesting. So in stories, we're often looking at characters or plots or like a bigger picture, and poems are kind of these little miniature windows into something really special oftentimes. And oftentimes they're like a fairly small moment or event or sensation. Their poems are much more about how you're feeling or what you observe. And so I say all of that just to say that there's tons of freedom to writing poetry. So in that vein, let's look at a fantastic poem. I'm going to share my screen with you in just one moment. This poem is by a really wonderful poet named Maya Angelou. Just showing you some photos of her because she was really tremendous. She passed away within the past few years. She was probably one of the greatest American poets and writers of all time. She's tremendous. And she's known a lot for her poem, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and a lot of other really inspiring work. But she also has this really playful and wonderful poem that we're going to read today. And it's called I Love the Look of Words. So follow along with me on the screen while I read it to you. Popcorn leaps, popping from the floor of a hot black skillet and into my mouth. Black words leap, snapping from the white page, rushing into my eyes, sliding into my brain, which gobbles them the way my tongue and teeth chomp the buttered popcorn. When I have stopped reading, ideas from the words stay stuck in my mind like the sweet smell of butter perfuming my fingers long after the popcorn is finished. I love the book and the look of words, the weight of ideas that popped into my mind. I love the tracks of new thinking in my mind. So what's really wonderful about this poem, I feel, is the surprise. So it starts off with a lot of mentions of popcorn, right? So at first we're talking about the popcorn hopping from the black skillet into the mouth. And the buttered popcorn is also how we end this group of lines. So just a little side note, anytime that there is a set of lines like we see here and here, in poetry, these are called stanzas. Stanzas are just simply, it's a name for a chunk of lines, and they differ. Sometimes they could be 3 lines or 10 lines. It depends on what the poet wants. So know that you can make your stanzas however long or short you like to. Excuse me. So, the first stanza, it seems like we're talking about popcorn, right? Like we're noticing and sensing with the poet about the wonderful buttery popcorn, except there's a little tiny hint about this white page in here. Let's see if I can circle that. And this kind of cues us in to the fact that what we're really talking about, as the title kind of shows us, I love the look of words, we're talking about reading. I love the book and the look of words and the way the ideas popped into my mind. So the poet is kind of using the popping popcorn in the first stanza and popped as a verb in the last stanza to connect the sensation of eating popcorn with reading a really good book or reading really wonderful words that leap off the page. So in this poem, there's really wonderful active verbs. Active verbs are like popping, snapping, rushing, sliding, chomp, reading, thinking, perfuming. So active verbs communicate doing things, right? Wow, I really can't type today. They are about action. So when you're writing, keep in mind, try to always keep your voice super charged with action. And it'll make your poems or your stories so much more interesting to read. Okay, so enough of Maya Angelou for the moment. Let's look at another poem by a wonderful poet named Shel Silverstein. So let me just take a moment and find a poem, and I will share it with you momentarily. Share screen. Okay, here we go. Where the sidewalk ends. So there's some marks on here from an earlier class, so just ignore those for the moment. And I will read it aloud to you. Follow along if you feel like it. There is a place where the sidewalk ends and before the street begins. And there the grass grows soft and white, and there the sun burns crimson bright. And there the moonbird rests from his flight to cool in the peppermint wind. Let us leave this place where the smoke blows black and the dark street winds and bends. Past the pits where the asphalt flowers grow, we shall walk with a walk that is measured and slow, and watch where the chalk-white arrows go to the place where the sidewalk ends. Yes, we'll walk with a walk that is measured and slow, and we'll go where the chalk-white arrows go, for the children they mark and the children they know, the place where the sidewalk ends. Okay, so lovely poem. Let's begin by noticing where the stanzas are, just like we did with the popcorn poem, the word poem. So in this poem, there are 1, 2, 3 stanzas. The first 2 stanzas have 6 lines each, so they're a bit longer. And the last stanza has 4 lines. It's helpful when we're looking at poetry to distinguish the stanzas because often poets will use stanzas to break up different themes or sounds within a poem. And they're a really useful way of organizing basically the different thoughts in a given poem. So when we look at this first stanza, I want to draw your attention to rhyming in it. So rhyming is a technique that poets, songwriters, rappers, everybody that writes sort of melodic lyrics or poems especially, use rhyming, right? So a poem does not have to rhyme in order to be a poem, but it's a really useful way to make each stanza and the poem itself feel whole and cohesive. Cohesive means that when we listen to it, it sounds as if it goes together well. So in the first stanza, notice there are 3 lines that end in words that sound alike. So there's white, bright, and flight. In the second stanza, there's again 3 words that rhyme: grow, slow, and go. And in the last stanza, those words repeat again: slow, go, and no. So when we read this poem, it sounds so pleasant to us because at the end of each line, it kind of rounds off with a word that rhymes with the next one. So it kind of has a sing-song-y feel. Also, Shel Silverstein uses repetition in order to create kind of rhythm within this piece. So repetition comes at the beginning of these 4 lines, which start with and these 3 lines, which start with and there, and there, and there, right? And then there's all sorts of repetition with words: walk, walk, a rhyming word, chalk, and sidewalk, and again, walk, walk, chalk, sidewalk. So there's all over the place, there's like little cues for the listener to kind of pick up on certain sounds and sensations in the poem. Really beautiful, right? Okay, so those 2 forms of poems are kind of like free verse. Free verse just means that it's not sticking to a strict meter. Meter means the amount of syllables and sounds in a line. So back up. Free verse just means basically the poet decides how many syllables they're going to keep in their line, and it's not so constrained. There's very little rules that they have to follow. Shel Silverstein definitely is following a bit more of a rigid structure because he's repeating certain things and rhyming in certain places, and he's pacing that all in order to make, a pretty structured poem. Maya Angelou's poem is a bit more freeform. She's still using repeated words and she's still using stanzas to break up her thoughts, but she's not really counting, as far as I know, just on a cursory look, it's not that she's counting each word or syllable in order to fit it into a more sort of whole structure. All that to say is poems come in all shapes and sizes, and there's one particular type of poetry called a haiku that I would love for you guys to try and write on your own time. So haikus are very, very, very ancient forms of poems that have 3 lines. So a line just means literally like a line of text. It's not a whole sentence, right? It's just a few words. Lines together make up a stanza, but haikus are so small that they don't even have really stanzas. They are a stanza in themselves. They're just like a little tiny blurb of a poem. So let's look together. I'm going to show you some examples. I'm going to show you some that I wrote, and then maybe we could go through the process of writing one together on camera, and then please try and write one for yourself. It literally would take at maximum 5 minutes to write like a quick haiku, and you could probably do it faster than that. Once you start doing it, it becomes really fun. You can do way more. You could spend an hour finding the exact perfect words to go in it. My hands look all dirty because I was drawing with charcoal this afternoon, so I did wash them. They're just stained. I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to look at this little document that I have pulled up here that I just found some very old haikus, ancient haikus that we can look at together. So see if you notice anything about these poems that sticks out at you. An old silent pond. A frog jumps into the pond. Splash. Silence again. Okay, that's one poem. So, a world of dew. A world of dew, and within every dewdrop, a world of struggle. And then this is a new poem. A poppy blooms. I write, erase, rewrite, erase again, and then a poppy blooms. So each of these three poems, these three haikus, follow a very specific kind of structure. And I'm going to type it out for you here. I'm going to make it nice and big so you can see it. It is what we call a 5, 7, 5. And you're probably like, Kate, that makes no sense. And why would we call this, group of words, basically these three numbers? So the numbers stand for something that I hope you've heard of before called a syllable. A syllable is just any basically chunk or group of, or actually I'll just say it's any chunk of vowel sound. Now, or section of a word. So for example, the word dog has one syllable. It has one vowel sound, sort of bordered by 2 consonants. Wow, spelling is really hard when you're on camera. Okay, so dog is a 1-syllable word, right? But let's say, bicycle. This one's a little bit tricky because the vowels are definitely covert. So bicycle, you can count on your fingers. Bicycle. It has 1, 2, 3 syllables. So in a haiku, a traditional haiku, the first line has 5 syllables. So let's count together. An, 1, old, 2, silent has 2, so that's 3, 4, pond, 5. So I'll just kind of space this out so you can see it together. An, old, silent, pond. So that makes for 5 syllables. The second line in a haiku always has 7 syllables, right? So and just count with me on your fingers as I do this, ready? A frog jumps into has 2 syllables, right? The pond, so that has 7. And then the last line, splash, silence again. So silence has 2, and again has 2, which makes for a total of 5. So I know that sounds a little bit confusing, but it's actually more simple than it may seem, right? So any words, it could be 5 1-syllable words, or 7 1-syllable words in a haiku. You're not counting the words, you're counting the syllables. So let's scroll down. I have some examples, and I think maybe this will make it a little bit clearer. I'm going to make it nice and big. And we're going to highlight each syllable as we go. Ready? A cup, blue and white. So each of these words is a 1-syllable word, and 5 of them makes 5 syllables. So a cup, blue and white, rests lightly on my knee now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I'll taste it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 5, 7, 5. A cup blue and white rests lightly on my knee. Now I think I'll taste it. So that's one little haiku that I wrote this afternoon. Let's look at another one together. And then I'm gonna try to write one with you guys watching over my shoulder, and then hopefully you'll try to write one yourself. So, seashell coiling round itself, a hollow cove for creatures great and small. So, seashell has 2 syllables. I'll just put a little dash there. So 1, 2, coiling, coiling has 2 syllables. Seashell coiling round. So there's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Itself has 2 syllables. A hollow, hollow has 2, right? Hall and low, hollow, cove, 4. Creatures, there's 2 there, great and small. So let's count these and see if I did it correctly. Seashell coiling round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Itself a hollow cove, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Creatures, 1, 2, great, 3, 4, and small, 5. So 5, 7, 5. That sounds super confusing to describe, but I promise you if you stick to the 5, 7, 5 rule, so 5, 7, 5 rule, you will have a haiku. So let's see if we can write one really quick together before I sign off from you guys and before you try to write your own. So let's write a haiku about swimming. So let's see. Swimming pool summer. So in this line, swimming has 1, 2, pool has 1, and summer has 2. So let's annotate this really quick so that you can see it a little bit clearly. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Beautiful. So swimming pool summer, dive right in the water. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we need one more syllable. Let's do go. Let's see. So let's count these up and see if I make it to 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, water has 2 syllables, and 7, go. Wonderful. Swimming pool summer, dive right in the water, go. Beneath the waves fly. So let's count these up and see if there are 5 there. Okay. Beneath the waves fly. And then I can count back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Beautiful. So as long as you follow the numbers, and you can double check yourself by adding these little marks over each syllable, remember not the word, but the syllable, you will have yourself a haiku. Okay, I'm going to stop the screen share now, and I'm going to encourage you to not only try to write a haiku, but maybe post it in the comments section of this video. I would absolutely love to read them. And if you really want feedback on your work, you can, as always, email this email that I'm going to put in the chat, lmccwriters@gmail.com. Okay, and I'll also put that in the description in the video. And I would love to hear from you guys, and I hope next week that you join me on Zoom because it would be a lot more fun than talking to myself on the screen. Okay, good luck writing and looking forward to reading your haikus. Bye.